Tell you what I'm here for. I'm here to protect women and girls. And for all of you young women and girls watching today, I hear you. I hear your stories. I hear your bullying stories. I hear your uncomfortableness. Because you see, sometimes young women and girls get trampled over. But let me tell you what I'm here for. I'm here as a mother and as a coach and as an athlete to stand up for the rights of women and especially young girls. That's what I'm here for. And in 1972, Title IX of the Education Amendments prohibits gender discrimination in all educational programs receiving federal funds. And I'm here today because women have had to fight for every God-given right, and I'll be damned if we're going to go back on that. When biological men invade women's spaces, our rights are violated, and our spaces are violated. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle constantly talk about following the science, but this makes it clear that this is merely a disingenuous slogan. So let's follow the science for a moment. Not opinions, but science. So Ms.
Representative Lisa McClain opens by framing the debate around women's sports, safety, and Title IX protections. Rather than beginning with technical policy details, she starts with a broader argument about fairness and opportunity for female athletes. The next exchange moves from principles to a debate over scientific claims and physical differences between men and women.
Ms. Graves, what is the average difference in skeletal muscle between biological men and biological women?
So I'm definitely not a scientist, but I can tell you about the studies that have been done looking at transgender athletes, cisgender athletes.
It's a great answer to a question I didn't ask, so perhaps I can help you.
So the answer, I think where you're trying to go is there an inherent
Is there a biological difference between men and women?
In all contexts, and the answer is no.
Okay,
right now.
Okay.
The answer is no.
Okay, let me educate you.
And the reason
okay,
that I can
reclaiming my
tell you that
time.
the answer is no is because UCLA has studied this. They did a study of
The gentlewoman's reclaimed her time. Ms. McClain's recognized.
So I'll educate you. I'll tell you, men have 30 to 40% more skeletal muscle than biological women. That's not right. That's not wrong. That just is what it is. I was going to ask you what is the difference in upper body strength, but I don't think you know that either. So I'll answer that question for you as well. Biological men exhibit 20 to 50% greater upper body strength and 25 to 30% lower body strength than biological women. That's just the science. Ms. Graves, you stated your organization's mission is to ensure safety and opportunity for all girls. Was Payton McNab safe on September 1st of 2022?
This portion highlights a common hearing tactic: lawmakers pressing witnesses for direct answers while witnesses often try to provide additional context. The disagreement here isn't only about the facts being discussed, it's also about how those facts should be interpreted in public policy.
It sounds like she definitely wasn't. And
Thank
what happened
you.
to her was tragic. I would argue, though,
Thank
that the answer is to ensure that people can't spike volleyballs into people's heads. That seems unsafe.
Thank you for your answer, Ms. Graves. So I will reclaim my time on that. So here's the inherent problem. If I would say I'm a 6'2" blonde supermodel, you agree with that statement? I know my husband does, but does that make it true?
I'm not sure how tall you are because you're sitting down, but I'm assuming you're not blonde.
Look like a 6'2" blonde supermodel?
No.
Okay. But I identify as one. Okay? Just because I identify as one doesn't make it true, but let's go ahead and say for a moment it's true. The issue that I have for the young girls is you can live in your reality. You can live in your reality. But when your reality intrudes on my safety and puts another person at harm or in harm's way, that's when I have a problem with it. When you want to live in your distorted reality, you can do that. But that doesn't mean everybody else has to do that.
The discussion now shifts from athletic performance to broader questions about identity and public accommodations. Notice how both participants are moving beyond sports statistics and into competing views about how society should balance inclusion, fairness, and safety.
Either, because I will ask you one other question. Can a 43-year-old man identify as a 13-year-old boy? Ms. Graves?
Can a 40?
Can a 43-year-old man live in his reality of identifying as a 13-year-old boy?
So this question makes me understand that you...
No, this question is a question that you need to answer that you refuse. If we're going to be who we want to be, can a 43-year-old man identify as a 13-year-old boy?
It is
It's a
absolutely...
yes or no.
So I'm hoping that some people are watching, and so that's why I'm trying to provide some...
There's the general.
To give a fuller answer. Here is my answer to you. The answer is no, that an adult can't be a child.
Why they identify as
What makes this exchange significant is that it reflects a much larger national debate that extends far beyond a single congressional hearing. At its core, the discussion centers on how schools, athletic organizations, lawmakers, and communities should approach participation in women's sports when questions involving transgender athletes arise. Representative McClain framed her argument around fairness, safety, and biological differences between males and females. Throughout the hearing, she repeatedly emphasized physical performance differences and argued that those differences are relevant when establishing rules for competitive sports. Her position reflects a viewpoint shared by many policymakers who believe sex-based athletic categories were created specifically because of average physiological differences between males and females. The witness approached the discussion from a different perspective. Rather than focusing exclusively on biological distinctions, she attempted to discuss context and broader considerations surrounding transgender participation in sports. This reflects another widely held viewpoint in public policy debates, one that emphasizes inclusion, equal opportunity, and the experiences of transgender individuals. One of the most notable aspects of the exchange is the contrast between political communication and academic discussion. Congressional hearings are often designed to produce concise answers and clear positions. Researchers and advocacy groups, however, frequently argue that complex social issues cannot always be reduced to simple yes or no responses. This tension appeared repeatedly throughout the questioning. The hearing also demonstrates how lawmakers use individual examples to support broader policy arguments. Representative McClain referenced a widely discussed volleyball injury involving Payton McNab. Supporters of her position argue that such incidents raise legitimate concerns about safety in women's sports. Critics, however, often respond that public policy should be based on comprehensive evidence and large-scale data rather than isolated cases alone. Another important element involves Title IX, the federal law referenced during the hearing. Originally enacted in 1972, Title IX prohibits sex-based discrimination in educational programs receiving federal funding. While the law itself has existed for decades, disagreements have emerged over how its protections should apply in situations involving gender identity and athletic participation. Different administrations, courts, states, and organizations have interpreted these questions differently over time. The discussion also illustrates how language shapes public debate. Terms such as fairness, equality, inclusion, safety, and discrimination are frequently used by both sides, but those words can carry different meanings depending on the speaker's perspective. Understanding those differences is often essential for evaluating the arguments being made. For viewers, one useful takeaway is that political hearings are rarely intended to resolve complicated policy disputes in a single session. Instead, they often serve as public forums where competing viewpoints are presented, challenged, and placed into the congressional record. As a result, Hearings frequently generate headlines and viral moments, but the underlying policy questions usually continue long after the hearing ends. Whether someone agrees more with Representative McClain's concerns about fairness and safety or with arguments emphasizing inclusion and equal participation, the broader issue remains one of the most debated topics in modern sports policy. Athletic organizations, educational institutions, courts, and lawmakers continue to grapple with these questions, and future decisions will likely shape how competitive sports are organized for years to come. Ultimately, this hearing serves as an example of how Congress examines controversial social issues in a public setting. The exchange generated attention because it featured direct questioning, competing interpretations of science and policy, and sharply different views about how society should balance rights, protections, and opportunities. Those are precisely the kinds of debates that often define major public policy discussions in the United States.